This is the old Doctor Who show, episode number 80, Inferno.
Go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine. You couldn't control my mind before, and you certainly can't control it now.
Would you like a jelly, baby?
The TARDIS, when working properly, is capable of many amazing things.
Reverse the polarity of the neutron flows, and the TARDIS will be free of the force field.
Well, the TARDIS is more than a machine. It's like a person, you see.
The resulting reaction is fighting. Are you ready?
Welcome back to the old Doctor Who show, your classic tri-weekly Doctor Who review podcast. Classic tri-weekly is now in canon. That's just the way it is. It's what my brain is programmed for. Yep. My little neural pathways are pretty deep into that
He's worn
connection.
A groove into his brain.
Yeah, it's fine.
There's just no getting around this.
It doesn't matter. I mean, you know what this show is anyway.
What if you didn't know what the show was, and you just this is the first time I've ever listened. I've heard of podcasts. They're getting pretty big. I'm just gonna pick this one and see what it's about.
Randomly, it's like that. What was that thing that you used to do, and it was people would just randomly get dick pics. Or like, well, you know,
all of the internet?
Chat roulette. Remember that?
Chat roulette.
I mean,
yeah,
showing
so
our age here.
Pod roulette. Yeah,
right.
It's a pod roulette, and you just get audio dick pics.
That's kind of what we are, I guess. How are you today, Dan?
I'm good, Eric. How are you?
I'm good.
It's
hot.
A freaking heat wave.
Yeah, Dan and I are in New Jersey. For folks following along at home on their map.
If you don't know where that is, it's right around the corona of the sun. Right now, that's where New Jersey is.
It's hot, and it's like I'm going to be going on a vacation soon to like one of the dumbest places you can go in August in Georgia. I'm going to be in Savannah, Georgia at one, and it's cooler there than it is here right now. I mean, it's super hot there. Don't get me wrong,
right?
But it's so hot in New Jersey. It was like 100 degrees yesterday, and the Midwest is even worse. So hats off, or I'll pour one out. I guess pouring one out for someone in the Midwest would be kind of cruel because they'd want to. I douse it over your head in like a slow motion flash dance type thing. Just dump a bucket of water. It's an ALS challenge, but it's not bad. It's just for good. Not that the ALS challenge was bad. I'm off to a rocky start here.
The challenge was good.
The challenge.
So you're going to the South in the summer in August. That's gross. Eric, I'm going to the tropics.
Oh,
we're going to a wedding in the Philippines during monsoon season.
Oh, be careful, Dan.
In the summer, I'm going to die. I'm going to melt.
What is the temperatures like there?
Hotter and more humid.
Yeah. Okay. So is it like hundreds? Is that what you're dealing with?
I know. No, I don't think it's about like this. Just more humid and constant at all times.
Right, and the danger of a storm.
It might be okay. We're going to the Philippines, and since we're going all the way over there, we're taking our time because the wedding's like 2 days with the thing beforehand. So we're going to take more time and stop in Hong Kong on the way.
That's nice.
Which is great because they're in the middle of civil unrest. Yeah, so that should be fine. Just no big deal. And then
the next time we have to record, though, you'll be in the back of a van or something, or they'll just mail me VHS tapes that I'll have to put in, like it mixed up with your kidnapping footage. Yeah, is going to be reviews of Doctor Who.
I'll try to slip it in.
The U.S. government we don't understand why this guy he's captured, and we don't know if it's a coded message, but he keeps talking about how much he likes Sylvester McCoy.
It's going to be all in Morse code in the way that I blink. I'm going to give you my entire review in that. So we're doing that first, and then...
first off, apologies to anyone that's ever been kidnapped in some kind of civil unrest situation.
We should have said there. Yeah, we should have had a trigger warning at the beginning of this. Sorry about that. And since we're going there, what other Southeast Asian country should we go to between Hong Kong and then going over to the Philippines? We're going to Vietnam.
Oh, that's actually supposed to be very nice, Dan.
Sure. It wasn't at the top of my list of places. There's many other, but yeah. So we're going to Da Nang for a few days.
Rule it.
Mostly going to be at a beach, but that'll be fine. But it's also like we're just going to the tropics when it's really, really, really hot. So we'll see what happens.
Right, you're having your own Mosquito Coast situation where you're not coming back.
No.
And it's just, you're going to live off the grid. Are you familiar with that movie? Is that a reference?
I remember of it.
Okay.
That's not a
it's
phrase.
Harrison Ford is a dad who takes his son, River Phoenix. He's like done with Western civilization, and they go to live on the Mosquito Coast, and things are sort of good, and then they go bad, and it's actually a pretty good movie.
Yeah. I like both.
So anyway, you're going to die
in
some kind of tropical storm, I think. But the podcast will go on.
It'll be great.
From your funeral. No, Dan, you're not going to die. Everything's going to be fine.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
But speaking of heat, Dan.
Wait. This transition.
Yeah, we didn't. I think going into
seamless.
just complaining about the heat, I was like, eventually my brain was like, hey, you guys are reviewing something called Inferno. Not as much sweating in Inferno as I thought there would be.
Are you kidding me? Oh,
yeah.
Jeez. All right, let's get there because
that was a little sarcasm for you. Okay, so let's hit the button and let's hit the button.
We'll do the button first. All right.
How did you get inside this establishment?
I beg your pardon?
How did you get in here?
Look, your name is Lethbridge Stewart.
Yes?
Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart.
Brigade leader.
All right, brigade leader. Have it your own way. And you are Elizabeth Shaw.
How did you know my name?
You've been spying on this establishment.
What are you talking about?
Your name?
My name? You asked me my name after all the years that you and I... Well, now, wait a minute. Yes, I think I'm beginning to see what's happened here. Might I suggest you just call me Doctor?
Doctor? Doctor what?
Smith. Dr. John Smith.
This is Inferno, released in 1970. It's the fourth and final serial of season number 7. It's written by Don Houghton, or Doug Houghton. I think it's Don Houghton. Let's call him Don Houghton. Directed by Douglas Camfield, though I did read it was apparently directed by Barry Letts, the back half of it, or several episodes, uncredited. In this story, the Doctor and Liz Shaw, who are still trapped on Earth, are working as consultants on a secret drilling project led by a Professor Stallman. And you'll know Professor Stallman by his large, oversized name tag. While mucking about with nuclear power, the Doctor inadvertently
sends... nuclear?
Nuclear. Nuclear. Did I say nuclear?
I think you actually did. I was just messing with you.
Okay, you're throwing me off. And then I'm having these flashbacks of, like, George W. Bush.
George W. Bush.
And it was like, remember when that was all the rage? It was like, oh my God, this guy mispronounced nuclear.
Right, that was the biggest.
Right, that was it. He said nuclear.
Nuclear, yeah. That for weeks, that was all that everyone talked about.
What a time that was. When
that was a golden era.
Literally, now you just watch videos of the president slapping women on the ass, and it's like, that's fine. It's all fine. So the Doctor inadvertently sends himself sideways into a parallel universe where Britain is racist, a fascist, but it must have either's fine. I think we'll take either. And his friends and counterparts are all bizarro versions of themselves, including a scarred and stashless brigadier, a somewhat different but not really that different Benton, and a cool as ice East Berliz Shaw. Also, there's green stuff in the earth that turns you into werewolves. After the alternate universe ends in an apocalypse and the death of all of those characters, the Doctor has to return to his own and stop the penetration. Dan, what did you think of Inferno? Oh, you still with me?
I'm sorry, that was one of my favorite intros in a real long time. That was great. Also, the phrase "stop the penetration" is
honestly, they must have had the rights to the word penetration because it gets said a lot. And then at one point, they're like, penetration 0, which has all the joys of penetration without the calories. It was like, was it like the most amount of times that anyone has ever said penetration in a Doctor Who story?
Oh, jeez. Yeah, probably. I maybe not. We still have a whole bunch to watch. There might be a whole story that's about nothing but penetration.
Yeah, you guys haven't seen Doctor Who? Penetration.
The Penetration Files.
So what did you think, Dan?
I really enjoyed this. For a bunch of different reasons. This is a crazy story. Just like you said in the intro, there's green goo that turns people into werewolves for no reason. That's nuts. That could have been an entire story, but that was just one part of it. The whole parallel universe thing was pretty interesting. I guess it's the first time they even touched on this subject in Doctor Who. For us, it's a very well-worn science fiction trope, and probably even up to this point, it was pretty heavily used. But to see it in the Doctor Who universe was pretty cool. It's also fun because as we're coming back through and doing stories again, different stories. This is the first we've seen Pertwee in a long time, so it's just nice. And this go-around to come back to seeing doctors. I said this in the last two that we didn't. It's like, it's nice to see Hartnell again. It's nice to see, it's really good to see Pertwee because I just don't feel like we got enough of him, especially with Liz, and I really enjoy her a lot. So there's a lot to like about this. There's a lot that's just so silly, goofy, over the top. But it's not in some of those cases when things are goofy and silly, they just don't make any sense. I think for the most part, if you just go with it, the story works really well. And even for the fact that it's a 7-parter, and I tend to want to die halfway through long stories like this, I enjoyed the whole thing. So it seemed to actually kind of go quickly for me. So even though it was a 7-parter and it was a very long, complex set of stories that were going on, I liked it as a whole, and I really enjoyed it. And I had no expectations going into it. I didn't really know. Actually, I knew literally nothing about this story going into it, so it was a lot of fun. Eric, what did you think of this story?
I will say, I loved it. Short version, but
okay.
Before I forget,
yeah,
I want to talk about coincidences that have deeper meaning. So we have, not even realizing that we're in, a heat wave, and we're doing Inferno is kind of like a serendipitous moment. But then also, when I was watching this story, I was like, oh, it's great to see Pertwee again, like you just said. And then I was like, oh, it was good we just got to do Patrick Troughton. And these stories were randomly selected. I mean, we're going in order of the Doctor, but we were never matching story to story for common themes. Even though that's something you want.
But it was way too much work.
But it happened because thinking back to Enemy of the World, I was like, oh, here's a story where you get a doppelganger version of the Doctor. And this story is literally the Doctor stays the same and everyone else becomes a doppelganger version.
That's true.
So they were sort of nice and complementary to each other. But I loved this story, and I love the story a lot more than I liked Enemy of the World. Whereas Enemy of the World, you have a twist that happens that I was not expecting, which is an underground city of Aryans that are controlling the weather or whatever they were doing, natural disasters. Right. And here you have this alternate version of the world that really is not necessary to be in the story. Like the fact that he goes to this world, the only real thing you get out of that is he watches all those people die, knows it's going to be the apocalypse, and has to go back and prevent it from happening. It's not that something happened with the drill that caused a split or caused it. Like, he literally is just, banging around on the TARDIS console, and they shut off the switch too early, and it screws him up, and he gets stuck somewhere. Right. But it's not real. The cause of what they're doing didn't cause it. It's like this separate thing that happens just so we can get an alternate world. But it works. I thought it was when that happened, I was like, oh, this is cool. And I loved seeing the Brigadier with the, being able to play like a super Nazi dude, and East Berlin, I called East Berliz Shaw, like that. I was like, I'll take this woman for a while, just to see what that character was like. So it was good to give her some range, and everybody got to have fun. It seemed like some characters were really interchangeable between worlds, where there were scenes sometimes between the Doctor and the guy that was the master drill man, Sutton, right? I think his name was. He was the guy that knew how to do oil drilling.
Yes, Greg Sutton.
Sometimes he would have a scene with the Doctor in the alternate world, and then we would go back to the current time, or our timeline, and then I would forget, did he talk to him here and have that conversation, or did he talk to him there? Because you get a lot of also repeating scenes. You literally see characters saying the same thing to each other. Greg is just as creepy with Dr. Petra in our world as in here in their world, and that whole thing
some things don't change.
Weird, a little weird, and he's constantly yelling at her. Like his character was like too aggro all the time, especially with her constantly. You idiot! Even though she's trying to save people, and he's yelling at her, and then he's
at the
forcing
same time
himself
that
on her, and she loves it
yes.
by the end.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
I just heard about this because I totally forgot about it. But that handbook for how guys can pick up women, and one of the techniques you're supposed to like neg them, supposed to like make them feel bad about this. He's got that down pat. He's like, "Oh, you're worthless. Oh, I love you." That was really from the perspective of 40 years later. Like that was really uncomfortable watching him demean her, and then she falls for him in both timelines.
Right, and she'd be like talking about something serious. Yeah, both timelines the same. He's creeping both. Where she's saying like, "Oh, are you leaving?" And then all of a sudden he's up in her business like, "Oh, is there a reason I should stay? There's a cloakroom back." Like just kind of weird,
almost
stepping over the line. But back to the story, I thought the music was great. This could be seen as a criticism, but I liked it. That somebody fell asleep with their hand on the ambient sound button, because so many scenes you just hear like air conditioning or like machinery running. There's so much ambient sound throughout the whole thing. Like just entire scenes where you just hear characters talking, but you hear all this noise in the background. Yeah. But I like that.
I agree. I like that a lot. I think it was actually well considered, because there's the scenes where they're in the main control room, and then the ambient noise of the machines and the computer, everything is pretty loud. And then they go into, I guess, where the Brigadier has set up his office.
Yes.
And it's one room removed, and there's a heavy door. But the ambient noise is still going on, but it's quieter. Like, they kept... And as soon as the door opens... Like, I don't know if there's actual, like... Was there noise on set? And that's how it worked? But if not, they really thought about that. So...
Yeah, it gave it a lot of
like
texture
they were in this,
to the...
Like, they're in the
depth.
same area, but they were one room removed. Which is very interesting, because I also noted some of the other sound effects were atrocious. Like, every gunshot...
Yeah, the gun... yep. It was like...
Bang, ricochet! Bang,
right,
ricochet!
Over...
Sounds. And the squealing of Bessie's tires, all of that was just awful. But everything, all those other things, like when they're in the main control room, when they're in the drill room, they all kind of felt atmospheric.
No, yeah, and it was a way of using sound design that I haven't necessarily picked up on in previous Doctor Who's that we reviewed, that gave a real sense of space and setting. Yeah. To feel like you were somewhere different, and it felt like, even though the sets... were pretty good. I thought the sets all were pretty good for the control room, and like, you know, it felt very industrial, but you really fed into that. I liked all the monster sounds too. Like when you first see all the werewolves and stuff, like they were doing something to their voices, and like it was like distorted, and it was very, very cool.
Well, can we talk about that for a second? So the Doctor says he's heard that sound before when he was at the eruption of Krakatoa.
Yeah.
What was...
I forgot to look up Krakatoa.
No. But I mean, okay, so it's an earthquake. A volcano explosion. But like, what does that sound have to? Is he saying the actual sound of a volcano erupting is the sound that they were making? I don't understand what he means.
I thought that was he was around during that eruption, and I put to notes to look it up because I don't know much about the event or whatever.
Yep.
You said it was a volcano or something erupted. Erupted. I took it as he was around then and knew that these creatures existed. And it's hard to understand even what these creatures are. It's like the Earth gone is protecting itself or something. I don't even know. I'm not sure what the creatures are and how it's related to the green ooze that transmutes human DNA to werewolf DNA. But I thought he heard that sound because he's dealt with these creatures before, back whenever this event happened.
So that seems to make sense. So yeah, Krakatoa was a volcanic eruption in Indonesia. He's like 1883. So the Doctor says that he knows this sound, and so if he has met these creatures, which are credited in the credits of the episodes as the Primords, even though no one ever refers to them with that term, but they're called the Primords, not werewolves. Get it right.
We weren't wolf boys; we were wolf men. So go on.
Moving right along.
Primords?
Primords.
Okay.
Primord. Like primordials.
Edgelords.
Prime real estate. So he must have heard them then, but then he doesn't seem like he has encountered them before when we actually see them on screen. There's no indication. It's like, oh, I know what these guys are. I know where they came from. None of that, really.
I mean, he doesn't say that, but he does have a jump on how to combat them. Like, he instantly knows when he starts making the connection that they get hot, that he needs fire extinguisher and all that kind of stuff.
Which is something, a logical leap that the Doctor would make regardless, whether or not he's actually met them before.
I don't fair.
Yeah, so it was a strange thing to say that, and then it was even stranger when he was looking at the green goo and says he wishes he could hear it because he wonders if it's screaming.
Right.
Which I tend to think about that with inanimate objects all the time. I just figure everything is screaming at all times. Super weird. Anyway,
yeah, but
strange things. I wish they kind of connected that a little bit more because it was just strange for the sake of being weird. But
right. To anyway. Piggyback onto what everybody's complaint probably is about this story is it is too long. Like, part 6 doesn't need to happen. I mean, a lot of this is problem solving in real time, where they're trying things and then they're failing and then they have to do them again. And, like, people are just sort of running in circles or their wheels are spinning and really nothing is getting done. And, if this was a 6-parter, and as much as I like 4-parters, I actually liked 90% of the journey where I was happy of these different things happening. And I think the fact that we had 2 timelines made it much easier to manage that, because you have story A, which is this stuff's going on, and story B, where the other stuff's going on. But I think you can still cut a whole episode out, and it would work.
Yeah.
It would work fine.
I agree. I think you're right. Having the 2 alternate universes where we can go back and forth between the stories works really well as an A and B plot, which they do have in some other Doctor Who stories. It's just in these A and B plots, you get to have the exact same people. Even if they're different characters, different versions of each other, you never get that. These A and B plots are usually very separate. And it's like, oh, this one doesn't make any... Who cares? I don't care who's in this one. But you get the same... different versions of the same people in each of those. And the way that those interact was... They could have done more of it, but it would have been too heavy-handed if they had. But I do like the way the 2 sides interacted with each other.
I think they could have done some of the editing a little bit better. Like, some of the transitions from World A to World B were a little awkward. Or, like, sometimes you jump back to just see the Doctor literally having the same conversation. The professor, not the Doctor. He wants to change it by some half of a percentage point. Like, change it by 2 points. And then someone says something, he goes, old ladies, you're like an old lady with the regulations. But you see that so many times. It's like, we get it. He wants to go, you know what? Go 5%. Stop doing 2% multiple times and just see what happens. So it was a little much. And I think that the fact that it stretched out for 7 stories is why we saw a lot of that repeating. Yeah. And it's even more obvious because we have 2 timelines where you are going to see scenes literally the same thing twice anyway.
Right.
But it's good. I really liked it. I did.
Yeah, do you just want to go through it a little bit
run through it, man.
Okay. So, the first thing I noticed, was this just me or the titles on this?
Oh, I love them.
They were good, but it's like huge, bold, graphic titles over the lava flows in the front. That doesn't feel like anything we've seen before or since. They don't really do that. Or it's just I don't know. It was the lettering choice superimposed over that slow moving lava. It was kind of cool. I like that. Anyway, so just from the very beginning, we're like, oh, this is something a little bit different.
And plus not only the titling, but you're saying like with the lettering.
Yes,
that was awesome. I mean, not the lettering. Yeah. The fact that it was footage of lava, like it was always the same. It had like a consistent feel to the titling, but it was like, okay, this is the thing. I wish they always did that, and it was just some theme or something that you saw with these. It gave it like a sense of grand scope or something.
Yeah.
I got to look up Spearhead from Space because I actually do own it to see. Like, I don't remember what the titling looked like on that. I think we did get white letters that said Spearhead from Space. But I think whatever was the background was whatever shot I think we were going into. It wasn't like a title card. The way
maybe it was something of this era, and we're just because we're kind of flipping through eras of the show. It struck me as being unique, and I really enjoyed that. Not a big thing, but just it was nice to like jump into it right away and be like, oh, cool. So we get the mechanic who's coming into the. We'll start off with the Doctor riding in Bessie, and he's singing a jaunty tune. And we cut to a mechanic who's also singing a jaunty tune as he goes to work on the the drill that's going into the Earth's crust. We don't know this yet, but he's going there to fix something. He's shown that this one drill is down, and it's been leaking this green goo. So what does he do? The first thing he does, he touches it. He touches the green goo.
Yeah.
Crazy thing.
Not something
to start off.
Think a guy who's used to fixing this. I mean, granted, this is material they've never seen before.
Right, so the first thing you do is you touch it. I'm surprised he didn't taste it.
Right.
I mean, that's the first. You see a green substance oozing out of a drill, you're going to lick it. So that's when the hilarity ensues and he starts changing. I really actually kind of like the shots because it was a mix between zombie at first, because he kind of went into this weird state where he was like all sweaty and drooling and staggering and full of violent rage, which just made me think of like a zombie movie of the era. And then it switches later and becomes like a werewolf movie or story. So it was kind of mixing these horror genres on top of the science fiction and parallel universe stuff, which I think was actually kind of cool.
And the fact that like they play that hand so early with they're changing, but they're kind of zombie-like or whatever.
Yeah,
you're like, okay, well that's the final form of this thing, and you're going to see them coming at people. But then all of a sudden they're like, nope, we're still like the evolution is not completed, and we have.
It takes a long time to get to the werewolf part, which I actually didn't see coming. I just they're getting like hairier and green, but I didn't really think they were turning full on 1950s werewolf.
It was like, look away, and it was like the Michael Jackson music was gonna trigger.
Yep, that's all problematic. We can't.
Fine. Yeah, we can't talk about him anymore.
Nope. Or John Landis. We can't talk about it. Everything's out of bounds.
But go on, go on, Dan.
Going on. So we see that the Doctor is working on the TARDIS console outside of the TARDIS, which is kind of cool.
Stop there if you don't mind.
I will.
I can't remember. We did Spearhead from Space, but it was so long ago. Now, from what I remember, Patrick Troughton ran into the Time Lords and was condemned to spend the rest of his years on Earth, right?
I don't know if it was the rest of his years, but yes.
Or whatever. He was in some kind of timeout on Earth.
Yes.
But the TARDIS is broken. They broke the TARDIS. Because it seems like in this, he's trying to fix the TARDIS to get away and to leave. And he's going to be back into space.
Right.
Is that what happened? Like, is he staying there because the Time Lords have said you have to stay there? Or is he staying there just because the TARDIS is broken? I just don't remember. I don't remember.
I honestly don't remember either. Everyone you can reply to us to let us know because we're not going to look it up ourselves. But yeah, because I feel like that's what he's constantly trying to do is get the TARDIS kind of work. He's always tinkering with it.
Right, but I don't remember him doing that in Spearhead from Space or any of the other stories.
Or the later ones.
From this season. Did we do any other ones from the season? Terror of the Autons is the one that's after this, which we did.
Right. But I don't remember that happening. I don't remember anything to do with the TARDIS there either.
Shaw ones? Nobody. So, no. If only there was a way that we could figure that out.
We can't possibly look it up.
But go on. But I was just curious. So when that happened, I was like, oh yeah, he's stuck on Earth, but why? And is it just because the TARDIS is broken? And he doesn't fix it at the end of this either. Like jumping all the way to the end, he ends up in a garbage pile, which was a funny little moment.
Right. Well, way to spoil it for us. It was interesting to see the TARDIS console outside of the TARDIS itself, and this kind of establishing that it is the TARDIS console that is responsible for all of the ability of the TARDIS itself. There's no, because in New Who obviously comes much later, but there's the whole heart of the TARDIS that's kind of connected inside the console. I just get the sense that there's more mechanics that need to happen for this to work besides just the console itself. That felt like the steering wheel to me, as opposed to the entire vehicle and just the TARDIS around it is just the shell.
Now, do you think, like, when they were doing this console thing, that at some point someone was entertaining the idea of putting the TARDIS console in Bessie, and they were going to ditch the police box, and he was going to go around space in that car?
Oh my goodness!
Like when I kept seeing the
car want to see that
next to and I was like, oh, they could easily just mount that to the side, and then he's this
put it right into the trunk?
James Bond.
Oh my goodness!
In a car, but yeah, whatever. Alternate universe, I guess that probably happened.
Yeah, sure. And now we can see parallel universes, so let's find out. This is the original console from the very first episode. So this one has been around for 7 years, and this was the last appearance of this console, according to Wikipedia. You can tell because they had to decommission the damn thing because it was falling apart. You notice that when the Doctor is showing, he's giving Esper Liz and we don't have a good name for the Brigadier. When he's showing them,
does he have an eye patch? I can't remember now.
Yes.
He also has the eye patch, and then the scar, and then the no mustache. They really Usually you get. Usually the mustache is the thing on the evil person, so it's sort of inverted already.
They flipped it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, should we do a scar and an eye patch? Is that too on the nose? Nope, go with it.
Well, he needed the eye patch because of the scar. What's under there? Who knows? It's a freaking rotting mess. But whenever the Doctor's giving them the proof, the time rotor goes up and down, and everything inside the rotor is just like shaking. Yeah. It looks like it's going to fall apart. It kind of works. It's like, oh, they really must have wrecked the TARDIS and stranded him there. That thing is just not going to fly. But it does.
And the TARDIS itself is supposed to be powered by like a collapsing star.
Right.
But you can power a TARDIS from the same amount of energy it takes to run air conditioning, I guess.
Well, to be fair, to run a lot of air conditioners.
That's true. It's a pretty big facility.
That's fine. It was the surplus energy from the nuclear reactor, so that's a lot. It's the nuclear reactor is basically like a collapsing star. Anyway, so that was kind of cool just to see them. It was also nice to see Bessie there. By the way, when the Doctor does slip into the parallel universe, why does Bessie go with him?
No idea. I guess it's
Bessie doesn't go at any other time.
Yeah, large enough circumference. Yeah, because that's an interesting point. Because when he is demonstrating it, Bessie's not disappearing, right? It's just him and the.
Well, he also had much less. He had only the power that was left, residual power left inside the console from his first powering it up. So maybe there wasn't enough power to transport other things.
Exactly what did go on, right? So he's running tests, and Liz Shaw, she's involved in it, and then they steal some power from the reactor, and then the bad guy, what's his name, Stallman. He increases the power too much, and it goes crazy, or he turns the power off. The Doctor's doing weird, walking around and sliding things off and on to like reroute his power.
Right.
I think he gets the power cut off, right?
Yeah, Stallman said, that's it, I'm not giving you any power, so he turned it off. The Doctor surreptitiously turns it back on, and then when Stallman notices, because he's not getting all the readings he expects, he's like, back. Oh, someone's taking power. He goes and turns it off. But what's happening to the TARDIS is he's getting too much power.
Yeah,
that seems weird because he turned it off, but he got more power.
You would
somehow.
think he would get too much power, and that would split the dimensional or like the.
Well, he said it was too much, and they couldn't turn it off because it got fused because it got too much power all at once. Whatever, it's science. It doesn't matter. It's nuclear physics. I don't get it.
None of it matter. It literally have computers that run on like little chips. Speaking of which, when Stallman goes to sabotage the computer, I mean, this is later on. Forget about going in order.
Let's jump around. It's fine.
He goes all the way in his office to try to hit it with a hammer, right, or hit it with something, and then later he just puts it on the ground and steps on it. But had he just done that to start, he would have saved himself some walking distance.
So he's trying to get his steps in. He took the microprocessor, and he wanted to do it so no one would see. That's why he took it into the office and was going to smash it.
And then he gets caught.
Stops him, and then he puts it in his pocket. The Doctor then and
empty
the brig,
your pockets.
Empty your pockets, basically. Let me see what's in your left pocket. There's nothing there. He must have ditched it.
Yeah, he dropped it on the floor, because then you see it later, and he comes back and he steps
and it was on the floor, and he couldn't pick it back up or whatever, so he's just stopped.
But I'm just saying, just break it there.
The crazier part was when the Doctor catches Stallman about to break it, and he uses Venusian karate on him.
There's a lot of that kind of stuff in this
There is a lot of that.
The fighting we could talk about forever. There's Venusian karate he uses on him. He takes two guards out. He's poking people in the chest. Like, he's got all these, things.
So Pertwee is he's an action.
He loves all of that. Yeah, it's a James Bond-ish judo chop. Like, he was always doing those type of fights.
Which is so interesting. I mean, I guess when you compare it to the previous two Doctors, it's a very nice change of pace for the character to have these action qualities where he is running all the time. He's doing the karate. He is driving the car and skidding around corners and all this stuff. Like, it's a very action-oriented thing. But just looking at him, he doesn't read visibly.
Why, 'cause he's dressed like a magician?
He's dressed like an old magician. Like he I guess compared to like Hartnell, he's young, but he's not young.
Well, he's very superhero-like, and they make a joke in the alternate world or whatever where he's showing, because he's trying to convince them that he's not a spy. And he's like, what did you expect, Batman on a rocket or something, when he shows him the thing? Because, you know, he's got a cape, and he's doing all these, like, action things, so he feels very superhero-like to me. But
which I enjoy. It's just so funny to see, like, when you see Pertwee, it's like, you would not be my first choice for an action doctor, but he does it well.
I think it works. And you brought up a good point, too, because, I mean, in the context of when this came out, you've got an old crotchety lying guy who's sort of hard to deal with that establishes it. Then you get like a weird hobo whistle man, and then all of a sudden, like, there's each doctor is so different from you know. It's kind of interesting that it works.
Oh, and you know, to continue on, Tom Baker is quite different, and but then from there, it seems like each actor is starting to take pieces of previous doctors and putting a twist on it to form their own doctors, especially when we get to modern Doctor Who. But you could even see that in some of the later Doctors in the original series, how they kind of are interacting with the previous versions of themselves as they create these characters. These first ones are entirely new, which is very cool.
But I would say that these doctors are borrowing from pop culture that is outside of science fiction, whereas now we're borrowing from, we're eating ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? And that happens, I think, in a lot of media, you know, whatever. But speaking of fights, though, the evil Brigadier fight was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. That was painful to watch. So it happens at the end.
One was this?
The Doctor fights the evil, I think it's the Doctor fights the evil Brigadier. Or someone else fights the evil Brigadier.
Oh, no, right. No,
but it's like a fight.
It was Greg.
I think it's Greg. Yeah, you're right. It's the two of them brawl.
Right.
And it's just painful and awkward. And the Brigadier is terrible at action scenes. Like, he's so stiff.
It's not the worst one.
Who's the worst?
It's not the worst. The worst fight is, I can't even remember who it was, because they're in those environmental suits, so their heads are covered, and they're in
when
those,
the Doctor goes incognito in his environmental suit, and he hides in the back of a Jeep, and those other two guys are like, oh yeah, I guess Steve's sleeping in the back.
He's taking a nap again.
Come on, let's just come in. But go on.
He had a liquid lunch, brought him in. But they're in the what room are they in? But it's filling up with the chemical. There's the fog in the room, and there's the two of them are fighting, and they're doing like 1950s pro wrestling flips. Like, one guy grabs the other one, grabs his hand, and they just like, boom, flip, and they get up, helps him up, move him around, and they do another flip
fighting,
again.
Right?
I think it is, but I couldn't.
Yeah, that's when Stallman
at the moment when I was watching it.
Right, Stallman.
When I was watching it at the moment.
Go on, we keep doing it.
No. Let's do this one more time.
You go.
There you go.
All right, I was going to say that.
No, you with it?
That scene is when Stallman goes into the drill room where the drill head is for all the penetration. So much penetration. But zero penetration, so you don't have to worry.
Right. Yeah. It's like,
it's not cheating if it's zero penetration. So you go in.
Light.
Sorry, penetration zero, trademark. This is the one where Stallman goes in and sabotages the drill head, and he's followed by Greg, right? And Greg goes in to fix something, and Stallman follows him and clocks him on the head, right? Knocks Greg out.
Right.
The Doctor comes in, engages in this awful fight where they're doing these wrestling moves. Then Greg comes to and clocks Stallman on the head.
Right.
And rescues the Doctor. They both leave, and then Greg has no idea what happened, or he's shocked that Stallman is evil. And it's like, who did you think you just clocked? You just hit a guy in the head, right?
With the giant name tag
on his... Thank God for that dumb name tag. Because you have to know which one's Stallman. They point at him and goes, that's Stallman. They say that.
There's a moment, like, that name tag is so funny. That name tag isn't always like that. Normally, it's just like a normal, it's just like, you would expect, like, maybe 2 inches tall.
This is novelty size.
There are a couple scenes where it is the size of, like, the Price is Right name tag, where they, like, sign it on this, like, it's gigantic.
Stallman, come on down!
Stallman!
Yep.
It was crazy, but it really struck me as funny. So those fight scenes were pretty terrible. Though we got to see Evil Liz. Evil Liz? Yeah, Evil Liz shot somebody. She
did. Yeah, she shot Bad Brigadier.
Yeah, which was kind of interesting because normal Liz wouldn't get to this. Apparently, in interviews, both actors, both Nicholas Courtney and Caroline John, said that these were their favorite characters to play. These alternate versions.
Yeah,
especially for the Brigadier. He said that this was his favorite. From what I read, Caroline John really enjoyed playing this Liz in this story more so than normal Liz. When she had to go back and play normal Liz, it was like, this is very boring. She got to actually kind of stretch, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, now we've seen this is the last Liz story, unfortunately. So there are 4 stories in her only season. We saw 3 of 4 of them. Like, we missed the story that precedes Inferno, but we saw Spearhead from Space, and we saw whatever comes after it.
Terror of the Autons?
No, Terror of the Autons is after. It's,
Oh, right. No, it is.
I gotta look it up right now. That's what I'm...
There's literally no way to find out.
Now, we missed Ambassadors of Death, but we saw Doctor Who and the Silurians.
Right.
Yes. So that was the only... I always liked Liz's character myself, but it has a ton of potential, but it's certainly not developed. I mean, she is an equal to the Doctor, which was nice, and I guess that didn't play well, because you immediately replace her with... what's her... I can't remember anything. What's the... Grant?
Joe Grant.
Joe Grant. Who people love, and I've
like
warmed
her,
to Joe
but
Grant.
She's very... Yeah.
But she's back in the mold of someone that screams all the time and needs to
damsel in distress, as opposed to an intellectual equal that Liz was.
Yeah. And I could see why for her it would be so much fun to play an evil, fascist. And what was cool about the fact that with these, I say bizarro versions of themselves, but it's actually not that. I said bizarro versions in the intro, but that's not accurate. I like that the writer took traits of characters in our world and just expanded on them. Like, the Brigadier is kind of a pain in the ass anyway. Like, him and the Doctor fight are constantly sort of at odds, and it's like it's the same person. It's just the person how they would be under different circumstances. So what would the Brigadier, who's all about working at unit and all this pomp and circumstance, be in a fascist state? He probably would end up the way that the evil one was. And how he was like, did you ever want to be a scientist to East Berliz? And she was like, kinda, I guess, did you find my dream journal? But she's still sort of like, she's not good in whatever good and evil is, but there's still that same core being in the they weren't totally version.
Disconnected. They seemed like they had common history and common traits, but just certain ones kind of evolved and other ones didn't.
Right. So those like alternate versions were still true to their character, even though they were so vastly different.
Yeah.
End scene.
Very good. Well said. Let's see. What else do we need to talk about?
Oh, we have to talk about Sir Keith Gold, who was a big part of this. Who seems very familiar. I'm sure he's been in other Doctor Who stories.
He looked like a thin British Eric Wareheim. Like, that's all I was seeing was Eric Wareheim the entire Tim and Eric also
he's
crazy.
Like
just
the good bureaucrat. Like, that's his role, kind of, right? I mean, he kind of has a pivotal role, but he doesn't.
No, he really doesn't.
I mean,
it was kind of fun. I like that they did the misdirect with the audience. So in both timelines, Sir Keith is going to go back to the Ministry to report what's going on because he has concerns that Stallman is exceeding all the safety limits and pressing on too hard without, just ignoring all the potential dangers. So he's going to go back to shut the whole thing down. In the alternate universe, Stallman hasn't killed, just hasn't bumped off. So then when we come back and see Sir Keith in our world, he's with the driver and he's supposed to be going back to London to report to the minister. But in this world, he wasn't to be bumped off. He was just supposed to be delayed, and the chauffeur was taking him way out into the middle of nowhere instead. It was supposed to have
and the chauffeur confesses pretty quick.
A break.
Like it goes.
He really does.
It's a pretty sharp turn.
the guy wasn't really into it. He was like, "I'm sorry, he was."
I just want you to know, I thought it was a bad idea before I did it. I was like, all right, thanks.
He's also the worst chauffeur because he can't have a conversation and keep on the road. And as you can see, it's the same thing I always do. It's like you're getting into a car accident, bright lights shining in the face. The guy's doing this on the steering wheel to no effect, and then just puts both hands off the wheel in front of his face. So we think that in both timelines, Sir Keith is dead. The Doctor even thinks so as well. But then it comes back later that they were just in a horrible accident. Sir Keith is fine. No word on the chauffeur, though.
No, we don't know what happened to him. I mean, the misdirect was interesting, but that whole accident was unnecessary. And totally Sir Keith's role, other than bringing in characters, because he keeps hiring advisors,
right,
is
and to
like
be a voice of reason.
He is kind of the voice of reason, but every time he gets a chance to step up, he doesn't, which I guess is a comment on government. But he's like, well, when the Doctor comes back, he's like, we're all going to die. We got to stop the drilling. And he's like, I could, but there's not sufficient enough evidence to stop this. And then it's a cut away to a werewolf coming out. And it's like kind of a joke.
Right.
But he doesn't really ever have any authority. He has to go to talk to someone else. And then when he gets back to say shut it down, he still doesn't shut it down. Because they still have this conversation where he's like, I can't because the doctor or the professor, he didn't really violate. Like, it's just like, well, what is the point of you going away, getting this, okay to stop it, and then not stopping it until we see the werewolf, and now you clearly have to stop it. And it takes Liz Shaw to go and convince Dr. Petra to do it without orders. It's like they're the ones that really save the day. It has nothing to do with Sir Keith Gold.
Yeah, I really like that it was Petra that was so by the books, and really, she was, especially in the alternate timeline, was very much doing her duty, and she was, feeling her power as, assistant director of this entire thing, and was just going along with everything. But it was her conscience that she was able to kind of break out of that.
Yeah, she was just bad in relationships.
Even though it didn't work. What's that?
She was just bad with relationships because that Greg Sutton is toxic. Yeah, I don't want to get
terrible. He's a toxic. She'll find out. Her girlfriends will tell her. It's gonna be
yelling and groping. That's the Greg Sutton way. He looked very familiar. The actor. I don't know if he's been in other Doctor Who. Maybe not. But to me, for some reason, he looks like I've seen him in something else. No,
I don't know.
Didn't strike you as being familiar.
His name was Derek Newkirk, and.
It's not important.
That's all he did here.
Yeah, it's all he did. Well,
that's it.
In my heart, he, I guess, it looks familiar.
He's everyman.
Or I've been in an alternate universe where he is a much bigger star.
You keep mentioning in this alternate Earth this fascistic, possibly racist, whatever.
Yeah,
I think that's true.
Typo, but
I
know.
Go
with it.
I know. No, but I mean the fascistic. Yes, obviously the whole unity is power, unity is strength.
Yeah,
whatever
and you get
thing.
the picture of the leader everywhere.
Right, but there's no discussion about what it is. It is literally just the poster, that kind of silly sort of emblem, arrows pointing in directions, and then his photo everywhere, and the fact that everyone's wearing severe clothing. Like that's I guess no. I'm sorry, I'm missing a big fact. Is in the alternate universe, everyone that's working there is doing it as a penal colony.
Yeah, they talk. They talk about this being a science prison. Or something.
My bad.
Which is kind of an interesting concept. Like, I got the science prison. But who the leader? You keep seeing this picture of the leader.
Yeah.
Who is that?
Just looks like nothing. There's no. Is
that a person? Nothing. Like, who does that mean something to someone that sees it as an in-joke? I don't know what. It was just kind of odd.
As Americans, 40 years later, it means nothing to me. But yeah, I don't know. Just some guy.
Yeah, that's good. It was all good.
That's just leader Steve. Steve the leader.
It's good. So I don't know. I think we've probably run through. Oh, you got something else?
So I mean, we didn't talk about
the green
reveal. What?
I was gonna say the green news, but I guess we did talk about that.
Well, we can talk about that. No, the reveal of the Brigadier, the evil Brigadier.
Oh yeah,
that moment
it was
so
great.
Good.
It was great.
He's sitting there in his office with his back to the camera and to the rest of the cast, and he swivels around real quick. He actually kind of overshoots his mark a little bit. The camera can't quite focus, and the camera angle.
It's tight.
The is so tight.
It's super tight.
It is top of forehead, bottom of chin. It's like, but it was a really fun reveal with the scar and the eye patch and the no mustache. Do you think I could?
He looked like he was having a ton of fun.
So much fun. Well,
yeah.
Okay, so I was reading through this before we got on the air. Apparently, there's a story about this that when they were filming, doing takes of this, the reveal. The actor's sitting there. Nicholas Courtney's sitting there with his back to the camera and his back to the rest of the cast, and he has his eye patch and scar. He spins around, and everyone else in the room also has eye patches on, and they do the entire take as though nothing is weird. So apparently,
Wait,
I don't know if
is that on the DVD or something.
I don't know where that came. That's on the Wikipedia.
That sounds funny.
And apparently that was such a beloved story that happened that in the New Who story, the Marriage of Rivers song. There's a whole thing about eye patches as a homage to him because Nicholas Courtney had died the year before. Anyway, I just thought it was a really cute moment. But that reveal is really ridiculous and over the top, but so well done. There's that moment, and another overdone moment that I still love is the interrogation scene. Where
with the light, and it's like, what are they doing to him that they're torturing, other than shining a light in his face?
That's all they're doing. They're just shining a light on it and shouting. But it just made me think of The Prisoner, and it just made me like, what is your name? What are you doing? Who do you work for? Just back and forth.
Right.
It just, I really loved that. It just felt like The Prisoner to me, but like a really bad version where they didn't quite understand what was going on.
Right.
And he was just like slumped over and tired. The doctor was just
It was a
tired.
torture scene with no torture.
No torture.
Right? It's like they couldn't show anything. But I guess we're supposed to imply that they were hurting him in some way.
I guess. And Eastbird Liz says, like, should we move on to phase 2? And the Brigadier's like, no, he's too strong. He'll probably die before he cracks.
Yeah.
Like,
I went from he needs get that man sunglasses.
Then there's a moment. This is all audio, and you would have to see it, but it struck me as super funny. He's in that scene. He's laying there. Doctor's all like, "We're out," and he's just like barely even speaking and just slumping back in the chair. And this alarm, the sound is going off. It's the drill breaking through, and it's just like almost like sound of air or something. Like
wait, is this?
Kind of sound.
Are you talking about when the doctor comes back to our world and he's in that coma?
No. This is when he's still in the interrogation
Okay.
scene. He's laying there. And there's a sound, and the doctor's like, he starts lifting up, and it's almost as though he's getting inflated. Please, I'll find you them. I'll make a gif of it because it's super funny. He's just laying there, and he's just like, he just rises back up and stands up out of his chair and then warns them.
There's some.
It's like one of those. We have them here in America, but like at a used car lot where they have the wacky inflatable arm guy. It's like he just inflates. It's just really funny to me. Anyway.
I loved all like the weird psych out stuff too. Like when the doctor is messing around with the TARDIS, you just get these cutaways to like the doctor's face getting distorted and zooming in on his face, like all these like psych freak out things.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. It was. What'd you think of it?
I always like any of that 70s, 60s stuff that's designed to smoke weed and watch it. And so I was thumbs up on that.
There were the moments, especially it was like a lot of dual screen where it was just like a mirror in the middle and kind of
like he's
back
trapped in this, and that happens before his
really well.
time step, right?
Right, that was his first. Yes,
he's
right.
sort of fooling around with it first, and then he fools around with it again, and then it breaks on through to the other side.
Yeah, very good.
Right.
And I don't know like how much we're supposed to read into this, but like he's doing that freak out and he's hanging on to the TARDIS and we're seeing it all go wobbly and everything. And then at one moment he flies away from the console.
Yeah.
So I guess the implication is he's just free floating in this null world outside of it. And then Liz cuts the power and he starts coming back, and the effect of like the splitting in two, the face kind of comes back together in a way. It actually, I don't know if it was intentional, but it worked really well.
No, I thought that was cool.
That effect.
One thought that just occurred to me: do you think that this parallel world in which Britain descends into fascism is a result of that world never having been visited by the Doctor before? Right? So there's like multiple timelines, and they're all going to go in one way, and one gets the Doctor and one doesn't, and the one that doesn't turns to fascism.
My mind,
I'm sorry, man.
I can't process this right now.
Let's just finish the rest of this story.
Amazing. Any other?
No, I'm trying to think.
things?
I feel like we covered all of the stuff. I can't stress enough. I really liked it, and
I did too.
I watched them, and this was actually a very nice way to watch them, 2 at a time over, I guess, 4 days.
Nice,
right? Because there's 7 of them.
Yeah,
and that was nice. And it wasn't like sometimes I'll watch these. I'll watch 4 in a row, even when I'm doing a 4-parter, and that's too much. And I think.
They weren't meant to, right?
Right, and it's not exactly. They're not meant, and it didn't. Again, part 6, I felt the most like it was dragging.
Yes,
but I just kind of liked being with all the characters, and I liked, especially seeing the evil versions of everyone. It was just fun. Like I thought it was a fun episode, and I like Pertwee a lot too because he tries to be so serious, like this, kung fu 007 secret agent, but he's super goofy. Too.
Right.
And it's almost
There's
like
a lot of humor
I don't know
to
if he's always aware of how goofy he is, but I'm okay with it in either direction.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally feel the same way. I was actually sick this week, so I ended up watching 5
in a
back
row
to back.
Okay, that's
and then watched the
harder.
last 2. And then because I couldn't really go anywhere, I started making the GIFs. I've actually already made the GIFs, which never happens either. So I kind of rewatched all of them again.
Yeah, to make them.
I didn't really watch, because I'm kind of skimming through as I'm trying to find the scenes that I like. So that's just to say, even with that, I really enjoyed the story because sometimes these can feel tedious. This one was not that at all.
All right, I got 2 more things. You have something else?
Me too.
Okay,
you go ahead. You go first.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
I'll do one, then you do one, then I do one, then you do one.
Great. I don't even know what we're going to talk about.
The ending of 6 is an apocalypse where all the characters we've just spent 6 chapters with die. And you see footage of, like, the lava flow and then civilians burning. Like, it's pretty super dark. There's no saving them. Mm-mm. There's no attempt to save them.
You can't.
I'm better off with these other people, so let's keep them alive and you die.
Right.
And it's okay. Everyone's okay with that. What did you think that was a little odd?
I mean, not everyone was okay with it. Evil Brig wasn't okay with it. He was kind of pissed.
Now, like in a typical Doctor Who story, I feel like the Doctor would have worked out a way to transport them to some other planet or like another dimension or nope.
No, this was great. That's a good point. I'm glad you mentioned that. It was good that happened. I mean, it's an alternate universe. Who cares? These people aren't real. But he did. Yeah, we spent maybe a third of our time in this story with these people, and they all died. Not that all of them were great or anything, but this is not something the Doctor would typically do. But he kept saying throughout before that happens, like, there's nothing I can do. I can't solve this. And you always think like, he can't solve it until he does.
Right.
He'll figure out, that one thing. Of course, I should have known. No, he just let them all die. That was pretty cool. I was going to say, this whole thing is coming about because they're drilling through the Earth's crust, and it's going to release, it releases all this energy. It's not even really about the goo. Like, that's just a side effect, that there's this goo that turns people into werewolves. It's this energy that's released that it ends up blowing up the Earth. It just seems like the Doctor would know that would happen. Like, why in the original timeline does he even let any of this happen? Right,
exactly. Yeah, that, like, he has to go to another dimension just to see how it plays out, but he should know it if he's aware of these, even of these creatures. He should know the creatures are bad and stop them just for the fact that he went through Krakatoa.
But even without the creatures being part of it, like, he is a scientist of a sort. And knows so much about, like, astrophysics and whatever, the makeup of planets. Like, wouldn't you think he would know if the case is that if they breach the Earth's crust, the planet's going to explode, he would know that just from having been to millions of planets before.
Yeah. No, I would think that he would
I don't know why this
bad
was, like,
idea for that reason. But, even if he didn't know that, he clearly knows that he's heard these sound, like, I don't know.
Right.
But again, he's watching things, and he keeps warning them about the computer. Like, the computer is a big part of this.
Yeah.
But it isn't also.
It isn't.
Any of the warnings that it says is the same warnings that could be coming from the Doctor. But in any case, like, he's sort of watching it, and he's like, what about the computer? But he's powerless in a way. Like, he's part of the unit machine, and he's just like a middle manager who's like, if we keep doing this, and the marketing guy is just running the company into the ground, you can't do anything about it.
Right.
Until you
He's
get
got to hit
laid
his
off.
numbers, so.
Then you got to find new work.
Okay, you go. You had one.
Okay, so then my next one was just in general, like, what did you think of Liz Shaw? Because Liz Shaw is gone.
Oh.
And we sort of talked about it, so maybe it's a repeat of what we did.
I mean, this is a nice send-off to be able to get to play a different version of the same character.
I think that's true.
In that part is nice. But the fact, apparently, there is no actual departing of Liz.
Yes.
There's no Sarah Jane moment.
No, and that's what I wanted to talk about, because it feels like the end of this is that. The Doctor turns to her, and he's fixed the TARDIS, and I thought, okay, this is the last we see of Liz Shaw, and it's not the best ending, but at least it's something. And he says, I'm going to miss you the most, Liz. And he's like, I hate you, Brigadier, which is kind of weird, considering how much
that moment,
like his hatred of the Brigadier. I felt bad for them. I was like, "What? Easy, back off.
Why?
Man. It's not that bad."
Yeah.
But then he turns to Liz and he's like, but I'm going to miss you. And then he disappears, and it's just Liz and the Brigadier. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Now Liz is going to stay with UNIT. The Doctor's going to go into space or do whatever, and then we'll get Joe Grant. But that's not what happens.
Yeah.
He literally comes back. They have a funny moment. Liz smiles, and then she's
that's it.
Off screen. We're
I don't know
that she's been reassigned. I can't remember what they say.
Is that what happens? I don't remember
They
either.
reassign her, or they say something happened to her. Here's your new assistant. And the Doctor spends the first half of the thing yelling at her because she gets the chemicals wrong. And she's not as good as Liz.
That's right.
Yeah,
but it's unfortunate that we don't get to see why she left or how she gets.
No, and then they had an opportunity to do it. Maybe they didn't know she was fired at that point. If you read about it,
I don't think so.
She was pregnant.
There was a note
planning on getting rid of her anyway, so it's like weird.
She was pregnant during the filming, but apparently, the producers weren't aware of that when they made the decisions. I don't know if that's true.
That's such a weird thing to leak to the It's like somebody saying like, "Oh, why are you fired off?" "Oh, I had a baby." "No, you didn't. We were going to fire you before we knew you had." Like, why is that corrected?
Right.
If it just feels kind of weird, right?
Very
like
strange.
who's
No.
Like,
who's standing to benefit?
Oh no, we were
going
to fire her before we knew. So don't even go by that dumb theory that it's because she was having a baby. Like, did she say that to save face, and then they undermined it, or did they say it first and then she said? I don't know.
Maybe it was just a comedy of errors. It's fine.
I don't know. But I've also read that she said to the actress that I guess they wanted her to be sexier. Like that was like a big thing. And I guess
I don't know if she could get sexier.
It wasn't
than
testing well because people don't like smart women, I guess. And that's, I don't know.
1970,
Whatever,
man.
man.
Oh, that's rough.
I liked her as a character. I thought she was,
I did too.
She was interesting.
I did too.
But again, I don't know. I didn't see the story before this. Maybe she's terrible in that. I don't know. You let us know.
Yeah. All right.
You have
my
one
last
more.
thing. My last thing was just silly. The use of the fire extinguishers was just hilarious to the point where they have the Brigadier with a extinguisher where he's keeping the werewolves at bay, and he's kind of holding it at crotch level, and it runs out, and he just like looks down at it, which I thought was hilarious because then Greg comes over with the giant hose that's working really well. That moment of emasculation I thought was really hilarious. So just a moment like that and the werewolves, for whatever reason, some of them decide to behave completely different than others, where they're kind of running around like zombies, where other ones are like big, strong, tough, whatever, werewolves. The other is that there's two moments where a werewolf is there looking around and then turns and looks right into the camera.
Yeah.
There's like two times where that happens, where I thought was just hilarious.
Now,
like,
here's another
why
thing.
do you make that choice?
Sticking with werewolves.
Yeah.
So the werewolves, the evolution of this werewolf species is accelerated by heat. And I think the Doctor even says that when he closes the room to the drill head.
Yep.
To slow down the evolution. So why is it that when these people are changed into werewolves, or changed into this thing from the beginning, several of them just keep going higher up into the scaffolding around the base? Because the Doctor keeps fighting people up there.
Right.
It's like they're moving away from the heat.
Yeah.
Doesn't that not make any sense? And the one
it does not make any sense.
What's his face who uses it as a face cream? So Stallman, like when he gets his chance, and he like really
so great.
He loves the feeling of it. But the other ones aren't drawn back into the heat. That just seemed like I don't know. It was a little
I think right. It was just because it looks cool to shoot that on top of those tanks.
Yeah, and we get that
was
twice.
Literally it. Twice.
We get 2 fights of the
and we get several guys falling off of them.
Yeah.
There's
almost too many guys.
What?
There's almost too many. Like there's
too many.
There's too many that it's like I think they're the next.
It starts
guy.
to lose its impact. Yeah. The last thing, and then we should kind of wrap this up and go to feedback, is just the overacting by Olaf Pooley, who played Professor Stallman. Those moments where he's having like the episodes where he's just like,
those must be the best gifts.
They were so wonderful. I don't want to let that go unremarked upon because
his severe headaches and then the eyes were that was so precious.
Just really good. There were some moments like those will be great reaction gifts.
Speaking of reactions, what did the audience think of this particular story, Dan?
Well, I want to say thank you again to everyone who was responding to us on Twitter. We got a lot of responses to this, mostly because we remembered to ask you guys for your feedback this time, unlike what we normally do. So our friends said the following. Christop said, Disco Werewolves and an alternate universe Evil Brigadier. How much more 1970s sci-fi can you get? Let me also mention, Eric, that between Doctor Who and Mystery Science Theater 3000, Pluto TV is rocking my world. So, Eric, you're going to get some of the sweet, sweet residuals from the
Pluto TV
free
better
service.
Cut me a check.
I still haven't really checked it out, but that's pretty cool. This stuff is all available there. So, Pluto TV, if it's available in your area, you should check that out because there's so much Doctor Who on there. So that's great.
I got to interject again because that's the way my brain works, Dan. Do you think that the whole reason that the werewolf people are in it is because this is 1970s, like Planet of the Apes is a big part of pop culture, at least in the States.
Maybe.
Anyway. Like, first one was the end of the 60s, 68 or so. But I feel like the cartoon is probably on, the toy line is probably on, so they look almost sort of like the Planet of the Apes.
To me, it looks like I Was a Teenage Werewolf, that sort of level of makeup. It really wasn't all that impressive. I actually liked the earlier versions of the were creature before it evolves into that final version. Looked kind of better.
Yeah. So you don't think it's trying to get some of that sweet Planet of the Apes money?
I think, like most of Doctor Who stories, it's riffing on something that's going on in the rest of pop culture. So I think that's probably accurate. Let's see. Our friends at the World Enough in Time podcast say about this story, not as unfailingly superb as some would have us believe. Very, very good, yes, with some great moments and dialogue, but it's far too long and has an unbelievably shit final scene.
Now, the final scene he's talking about is him leaving and then coming back and then getting the trash can?
That is the final scene. I dislike that, like we just said. I didn't like that interaction between the Doctor and the Brig. I don't mind the tension between them. I think that's great because he needs some sort of antagonist that he can kind of turn on but also show his charm, and that's great. But like to be so blatantly like, I hate your stupid face. I hope I never see you again. Go die.
Right. And then come back with his tail between his legs. Like, oh,
come on, we're gonna be great. Like, it was just too over the top for me. But yeah, I did. But this is the one time, World Enough in Time, that I disagree on it being too long. I think yes, there was some stuff that could be cut out, as Eric mentioned, but I didn't feel it like I do in some 4-parters that feel like 7-parters. This was pretty great. Moving on, because we are running low on time here. Uncle Beard says, this is as bleak as Who gets, especially the ending. I like the story on its own, but given the rest of the Pertwee era, I can see why they lightened on the tone from then on. Chill out, guys. Less dying in lava, more nuthatch and chill. So that's kind of cool. Yeah. This was a very dark episode.
It was super. I mean, but it didn't feel dark until that episode 6. And I guess it is when you think about it. It's a fascist state and people are evil and getting tortured. But it didn't really feel like, oh, that's super dark until we literally saw footage of civilians being burned alive. It's like, okay, you're really committing to that.
Entire world.
One other thing. So, like, I didn't know anything about the story. You didn't know anything about the story. Based on all the feedback we've just gotten, people love it. I mean, that's what
apparently.
First person said it's not as universally loved as it deserves or whatever they said. So that's interesting to know.
That is interesting. Okay, Daniel Smith says, being part of the best season of Doctor Who, Inferno is not a standout, even though it is an incredible masterpiece written by Don Houghton. It is a story which, by the end, will make you feel emotionally overwhelmed. Also a 6-part story that has never flown past so quickly. 6 out of 5 stars.
Now,
I don't know if I felt emotionally,
story, but it's a 7-part story.
No, he says it's a 7-part story that flew by so quickly. He gave it 6 out of 5 stars. You see, an extra star for extra good.
6-part, and I was saying, I think 6-part would have been perfect.
Yeah, you would have liked the 6-part. I thought, there was some good emotional moments, but I don't think it was emotionally overwhelming. But I felt like it was exciting the whole way through, like you just heard us say. Moving on. Jixter. Oh, thank you for the feedback there, Daniel. Jixter says, Inferno is a classic story. Scientists drilling to the center of the Earth unleash powerful forces that threaten the world, only for there to be an alternate dimension twist to it. That's the flaw, though. Too much taken up with the Doctor having to keep explaining who he is. It's notable, though, for being Liz Shaw's final episode as a main companion, which is a shame because she was an interesting match for the Doctor and only lasted 1 season. Eric, you said the same. You thought that she was a good compliment to the Doctor, being his equal.
Yeah, she was interesting because she wasn't totally developed, but I feel like there was been a good future with her. And I like the actress. I find the actress to be charming, and I kind of liked...
I do as well.
Fine.
Yeah, it's too bad.
It's all good.
Andrew Stevens says, this blew my mind watching it as an 8-year-old in the early 1980s in reruns in New Zealand. Having the Doctor try and fail to save Parallel Earth was a masterstroke of ratcheting up the tension in what could otherwise have been a fairly pedestrian story. Of course, as an adult, I realized that the whole Parallel Earth concept probably started as a genius-level cost-cutting exercise to film 7 episodes with the same cast and sets. Brilliant. So he's actually, thank you, Andrew, for that. He's actually pointing to a myth that I saw on one of the Wikipedia pages about this, that there was some sort of production cost-cutting thing where the parallel universe was stuck in so that they could stretch the production time out with less budget because you have the same sets and same characters, same actors. But according to this Wikipedia page, for whatever that's worth, it says that alternate universe stuff had actually been there since the very early drafts of this story, and that it was actually, if anything, the primordials that were added later by the production staff.
Yeah, and I can see that
padded out the story, which totally, you didn't need the werewolves at all. Like that totally feels like an afterthought that was kind of worked in. So, but either way, they probably did get more bang for the buck to get 7 parts out of this with the same sets and cast.
Yeah, and it worked.
So,
I think that
overall,
saving money is not always a bad thing. Sometimes our limitations, Dan, create greater and better art.
Oh, God.
Right?
Thank you for that, Andrew Stevens. Paul says, a good story, though at 7 episodes, it's a bit too long.
Yep,
My favorite moment is the banter. What's that?
I said that's a common theme. I think that keeps
common theme.
That it's a little too long.
We don't. One fewer episode might have been cool. Good. Favorite moment is the banter between the Doctor and the Brigadier right at the end. Favorite moment is that banter. The shame Liz Shaw didn't get a decent send off, but she was too smart to be the voice of the audience. It didn't make sense for her to ask questions. So yeah, I think that's kind of right.
I don't agree with that though. I mean, I don't agree with thinking that she's not a good voice for the audience because she can't ask questions. Because half the stuff that the Doctor is dealing with is outside of Earth's laws. And if she's a scientist, she could be the Scully to his Mulder. I mean, I think that totally would work. I don't, and I've read that was their thing was she wasn't a good voice of the audience because she was too smart, but. I agree.
I could kind of see that.
As a scientist, you're asking questions
I'm not saying
anyway.
it's right. I'm not saying that is correct. I could see that point of view from the production staff, saying that they want someone more like Joe Grant. Jeez, I'm sorry about that. Like Joe Grant, or someone who just doesn't quite understand what's going on, so the Doctor can explain things and do that exposition.
They basically what they want is a child, in the body of a woman.
Who doesn't want?
Well, I think that's now you're starting to really crack the nut on the patriarchy, Dan.
The patriarchy, I've nailed it. But it is. I mean, it is a children's show ostensibly, so you do need that person to be able to do that. But I loved Liz. I mean, there's no reason they could have brought someone else on. They had many stories with multiple companions, and you could have kept her and added a kid, an actual kid. Would have been cool.
An Adric.
And last from Greg Cox saying, my favorite ever absolutely brilliant. So we kind of agree with you on that part. I think we overall really liked it. So thank you all for the Twitter feedback. You can reach us at TODW Show. I'll be posting those GIFs right before this episode goes live, which has already happened because you're listening to it right now. So go check out the GIFs on the show page at theolddoctorwhoshow.com. Lastly, Eric, we do have a couple of emails. I'd be remiss if we didn't mention those. Not relating to this story, but relating to the last one, listener Deborah Battle says, "Hi, I know it's been a long, long time since I last sent you a comment. This has to be, speaking of Enemy of the World, this has to be my top 5 favorite episodes of The Second Doctor. I sometimes forget that this episode is in black and white." So that's cool. I mean, it is definitely a memorable episode of The Second Doctor. Not that we've seen too terribly many of them.
No, but
so it's very easy for me to remember it because we've only seen a handful of them. But it's definitely a standout in that whole dual portrayal characterization. It's kind of cool. And
we owe more email too.
Last email from Conrad, who says about Doctor Who and Stop the Drilling. Says in a nice bulleted list here, the positives: location and stunts are great. Nick Courtney is Nick Courtney is superb as the Brigadier and Brigade Leader.
True.
Yep. A recent Doctor Who magazine poll voted this the fan favorite Pertwee story.
This is a lie. Fake news.
Wait,
no, I don't know what the recent Doctor Who magazine poll was, but I'll take your word for it.
Seems realistic. And then he goes on to say, meanwhile, in a parallel universe, on the negative side, it's too long, too repetitive, too grim, too macho, too shouty, too many garage doors.
Talk about the garage door.
So that wasn't the Sonic?
I thought it was the Sonic.
But then he calls it the garage door, like a door handle, and he doesn't use it for anything except that. Like, I don't know. I thought it was.
Thinking
like,
it was a Sonic, and that was just a joke. But he could have built his own.
But
I don't remember where the Sonic is, and it's hard now that we're jumping around to
right,
because it does disappear at one point, right? And then it comes back
because they were relying on it too much, and then anyway, it was just
so
funny.
So
that's
much
literally
stuff
all it was
with
for.
that, and it goes back to, again, tying back to the last one we just did, the Enemy of the World, where they play around with these green screens that show footage to give depth, and we see the garage door. You can see the outside projected.
Yes. See, this is, I think, a little bit different though. That last one, I have a feeling. I didn't do any research because you know me. But in the Enemy of the World, that I think was an actual projecting like a movie theater projection onto a screen behind the actors. As opposed, so that was actually, you could look at it with your naked eye and see it happening. Whereas this was actually like chroma key green screen behind it, which is interesting. I like the actual effect of the projection because as the camera moves, everything still stays in the right position. With a chroma key, if the camera wobbles a little bit, the background doesn't quite line up and it looks really bad.
Yeah.
Not to mention the parts that actually cut around the people, as that technology just doesn't look great at the beginning.
But you got at least you got to see like shots of her in front of the closed door, then a shot of just the Doctor hitting the door button.
Yes.
And then the next shot, the door's open and she's standing in front of the background. See you later, Doctor.
They had different angles of it as well, like whether the camera was showing straight out or off to the side, and then it gets replaced by lava coming out.
We spend a good, I'd say 2 minutes on garage door related activities.
It's just ridiculous.
All right, keep going.
Finishing up this email, they go on to say, I never warmed to Liz Shaw and find the Primords unwatchable. False!
Fair enough.
They were both great. Greg Cravat and Petra Hairtuck. Oh, Greg Cravat. I like it. Greg Cravat and Petra Hairtuck are the reason there isn't a straight Pride.
Yeah, their relationship was a little toxic, and
horrible.
He was super macho, yelly.
It was not her fault.
But again, at the end, they write it as that's what it takes to win her over.
Yeah,
she's like, I guess I kind of want you to be around, just to,
The caveman has to hit her over the head with a club and drag her by the hair. That's what they want. Horrible 1970s. Okay, last, I'd rather drink coolant from a number 2 outflow pipe.
Not a fan. And this is also Hair of the Hound. That is writing here.
This
is not a fan
sorry.
of this thing. Well, I disagree. I was a fan.
I'm sorry. I didn't see at the end that this is Hair of the Hound on the Twitters. Thank you very much. And as Eric would say, I think we're done now. Dan, can we be done?
And that is always true.
We do say that a lot, don't we?
Yeah.
So that was the emails.
Thank
you very much for writing to us. You can email us if you'd like to at theolddoctorwhoshow@gmail.com. You can visit our show page at theolddoctorwhoshow.com to check the schedule to see what we're going to be doing next.
Right, and speaking of which,
what are we doing
get
next?
ready for our next thing, which is not in front of me. It's Seeds of Doom. So now we're jumping to
Seeds of Doom.
to Tom Baker. So, right? Yeah, Seeds of Doom,
Yep.
Tom Baker.
Yep. Although right now I kind of feel like I could stay with Pertwee for a little bit.
I could, but I do like this. I like that
I like
we
it
are
too.
changing
I like it too.
because, like,
No, this is great.
Enemy of the World was good, but then now I was so happy to see Pertwee, and I'm going to be so happy to see
You're
Tom
going to be
Baker.
psyched to see Tom again. Yep.
And then we do
so
Kinda
that's fun.
after that. So or Kinda. Damn it.
I know. It's going to happen. Okay, so there's that. You can check out our all the gifts and stuff will be on the show page, but you can also check it out on Instagram at TODW Show and Facebook.com/TODWS if you want to interact with us there. You can also send us physical goods if you'd like to. No pressure. That would be cool, though. Where can they send that information to?
That's
Eric?
P.O. Box 2131, Red Bank, New Jersey, 07701.
Amazing.
I didn't check
So,
if we had new reviews to read. I don't think we do, right?
If not, we'll just save them up for the next time. For all those 5-star reviews you guys are going to leave, tell your friends.
Go
If
to
you
iTunes
listen to the
and
show,
give us some stars.
you guys are so active on the Twitters. I'm assuming all of you have already reviewed the show in your respective areas, iTunes or Google Play, Hangouts, or whatever the frick they call it now. So,
Oh no,
if you
wait, we got
haven't,
a
tell a friend.
negative review.
So don't read that one.
I'm gonna read it.
Just kidding.
Just okay. This is why we're now at 4.5 out of 5.
Oh my goodness!
So just
Killing
okay
me.
by Sad or Weird Face. This is from July 19th. This is the U.S. store. The show is okay. It really could be much better. There is so much to say, and these guys don't do a ton of research. I kind of feel like they're winging it. I listen sometimes, but there's a lot of better Doctor Who podcasts out there. Well, thank you. I could address you, but you're just a series of symbols. So maybe you could do more research on your name. Burn! No, it's fine. Hey, we're not for everyone. We're not going to do a ton of research because, I don't know, find that a little boring.
We have actually explained the whole premise of this is that Eric and I are friends who don't get to see each other. We watch a story and then talk about it. So that's pretty much what you guys are here for. So if you like it, please keep listening. Tell your friends about it. If you don't like it, you can make a podcast.
No, it's fine.
There's like 700,000 of them.
They're
so
not all going to be 5 stars, man. But
yeah, but if you haven't written a review and you do like the show, that'd be awesome. Okay. Anyway.
yeah,
that's
exactly.
it.
Exactly. If you like
What?
this show, like Dan's saying, you got to do 2 reviews to make up for just okay. Honestly,
Eric.
just okay is a 3-star, not a 2-star. I think 2-star is not okay, and 1-star would
that's
be
right.
terrible. Terrible.
Right.
Just okay.
So apparently
okay,
we're not okay.
kind of
Yeah.
cool. Amazing. You can come up with your own names, but just okay 2 is too low for just okay.
If you go to theolddoctorwhoshow.com, we're going to give you sample reviews that you could just copy and paste into iTunes. It'll be great.
Now
Eric,
you're talking.
can we be done?
Please, it over.
Can we be done
Yeah,
now?
no, I'm done. I've been ready to shut
Great.
the show down 2 years ago. Oh, you mean just this episode?
I just
Okay,
missed this episode.
yeah, no, let's
right.
end this.
All right, guys.
All right,
Until
see ya,
next
everyone.
time. Bye.
Where's my robot? You know?